Alright, my little morning stars, welcome back to another episode of the Public Announcement Podcast. And today's episode we will be discussing a very, I would say, interesting topic, and that is female representation in movies generally. And we are going to be focusing on the American industry because that's where the phenomenon or the entire problem is the most dominant. They are sort of very left-based. So you would expect from Hollywood that they would sort of do what the SJWs want them to do. That means that Hollywood in the past years has been very busy in including every single minority or group in their movies possible and sort of removing the white man out of the movie, because the white man is the new boogeyman of the 21st century and he has to be eradicated by all means necessary. And Hollywood, another thing that is notorious for are reboots, right? Hollywood loves reboots because generally speaking you already have a certain fan base that you can cling to, and that fan base will come and see the movie because they want to see the original redone in new colors and, with new effects and everything. So Hollywood loves reboots because it's easy money for them. They basically have the story written down and sort of a way how to shoot it, right? What they have to do is just write a script, and even that script is heavily based on the original one, and just shoot it with new technology and cast new actors. But what we see in the recent years is that most reboots, which first of all featured male leads, are now replaced by female leads. Now, to me, a female lead and a male lead makes no difference. If there is well explained while there is a female or a male lead, or if it's obvious from the movie, then I'm perfectly fine with both of them. I do not discriminate. But when you see that the sole purpose of the female lead is to scream that I am female, then it kind of gets on your nerves. Why wouldn't men be able to play this? Are we discriminating men? But Hollywood, of course, doesn't really deal with this question. The important thing is that SJWs are happy. When we talk about the reboots, I'm talking about Ghostbusters. I'm talking about the recent Men in Black. And of course, the most famous example and one of the main motivations I've done this is the new James Bond movie that is being prepared. So the entire thing, I think, began with Ghostbusters. Everybody knows Ghostbusters, right? Since you know that the original cast was 4 male actors, and they were hunting ghosts throughout the city, the plot. And suddenly Hollywood came up with a reboot, but instead of casting new age male actors, they decided it's gonna be all female, right? And their sole explanation was something along the lines like, the men are retired, so now females have to take over the business. And you're just sort of like left wondering why. Essentially speaking, plot-wise, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Right? Because, well, the Ghostbusters movie can be as well played with females as males. Of course, the Ghostbusters movie flopped, the new one, just because of the negative backlash it got from everybody. But what I'm essentially saying is that to the plot of Ghostbusters, it's not really crucial who the Ghostbuster is. If it's a man, a female, or a transgender person. There is no real difference between these three in eyes of the Ghostbusters. Another example of this where it doesn't really matter is Ocean's 8, right? Or Debbie's 8. I don't know what the name of the movie was precisely. It was like changed a lot of times, but the sort of like loose sequel to Ocean's 11, right? And essentially speaking, I think Sandra Bullock played like Danny Ocean's sister, right? And she was making this crew to steal some diamonds from some auction. And again, I don't really mind having their female leads because it makes sense to the plot of the movie, right? There are also female thieves and there are also male thieves. There could be also female Ghostbusters and male Ghostbusters. The point when this entire thing starts to get very, very weird is when you get movies like Men in Black, for example. Men in Black, as you remember, it was always Will Smith and that other actor. I forgot his name, but 2 men, and that's what the movie suggested. Men in Black, right? Because, well, men were the secret agents and they were dressed in black. But, guess what? The new movie features a black woman playing one of the agents. I will come out and say I haven't seen the movie, but my dad has, and when I talked to him about, well, the movie itself or how it was, he pretty much told me that there was no mention of Will Smith or any of the previous sequels, and essentially speaking, there was nothing from the original Men in Black movies. It was just a new movie. And that left me wondering, why wouldn't Hollywood just do a new movie about some space rangers hunting for aliens aliens, and then feature a black woman and a man. Because essentially Men in Black is supposed to be about male agents hunting aliens, right? That is the premise of the movie, and that has been established by the 3 movies that already came out. The 4th one being the newest one that completely destroys everything that the previous movies or the previous franchise has established, right? And there's not even a nod to the previous franchise, the one that made the name. So Hollywood sort of shoots themselves in the leg with this because people come to the cinema with a certain expectations and they don't get it. I'm not saying the movie must be bad because there is a female lead. I'm saying that if they would just make up a different name and not call it Men in Black, I think the movie itself would be perceived in a much nicer sense. Everything would be more okay, even with the original fans. Or, well, the original fans wouldn't know this movie is heavily inspired by Men in Black. If it would be called something, I don't know, like Space Rangers or something, it would be a whole new different movie, and therefore you can establish a whole new different plot line and you don't have to build expectations of your fans. Of course, I am not stupid, and I know why Hollywood does this, because it's much easier to sell merchandise or tickets to movie which is called Men in Black, which people sort of like very vividly remember that those were movies that were celebrated. It's exactly like the movies Tomb Raider, right? I have nothing against Tomb Raider. I think the movie was quite good, but people that came there because it's a movie called The Tomb Raider were disappointed. I'll tell you honestly, I never played Tomb Raider. I have a copy of the game, but I never played it. I never got to. But I understand that people who played the video game and then went to see the movie were disappointed because not everything was kept, and Lara Croft was crafted into a whole new different character than she was supposed to be. And now we are coming to where Hollywood or movie studios just out of the blue revealed what they wanted to do all along, and how it actually destroys even a movie which is not established. Let's have a look at Captain Marvelita and what a shitfest that was. My sister is a very big fan of Marvel movies, so we went to see Captain Marvel the very first day it came out. And I'll tell you honestly, I really liked the movie. I think Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson had a nice chemistry going on. The movie was not like awesome, but it was good. The soundtrack was nice. The effects were nice. But even then I could notice some scenes that sort of like ring the bell in my head. I vividly remember a scene where Captain Marvel is like, I don't know, she was fighting somebody, and then there's like this flashback to all the times in her life when some ruthless man came and told her, oh, you're not good enough, and maybe you're not set for this life. I remember there was like this this scene where she crashed her car and her dad said like, you don't belong in this car. This is not for females, right? And then there was like a cut to another scene where she was climbing a rope and the male soldiers were making fun of her, and then she like fell down. I was like, why the fuck would you include this in the movie? What does it have to really do with anybody? Why do we have to see a scene where she's like diminished by men? Just by men? Weren't there other women making fun of her during her life? Was it just white men sort of like telling her to go fuck herself? And that she won't do it? Is that what we are supposed to come off with from the movie with? I guess we are. I guess we are supposed to come off that white men are just ruthless pieces of shit and they don't really give a shit about anybody, just themselves, and women are like something of a lower class than themselves. But Captain Marvelita really took the cake with the like final scene. I bet for the fans of the movie, everybody remembers this scene because this has been one of the most discussed ones of the movie. It's when the villain of the movie, right? He tries to fly away, and after a long battle, Captain Marvelita shoots him down from the sky. The main villain being, of course, a white man, because you have to have that one. And he just stands up and he throws away all his weapons. And Captain Marvel, she goes down on the ground and just stops being this fireball that she was before, and just loses her superpowers for a while. And the man is like, now let's fight you and me without our superpowers, and if you win, then I'll respect you, And Captain Marvelita, she just blasts him off, and I'm like, why? Because generally when you have a movie, the character or the characters are supposed to start at a point A, and then as they move on, they're supposed to end at a point B, and during this journey, they're supposed to learn something, and it's supposed to improve them or not improve them, but change their character. They're supposed to learn something else. And if there was something, Captain Marvelita at the beginning of the movie was sort of said to be like this very curious girl with bad temper, temper and she could not control her emotions and she could not control her powers, and that was making her weak, which I thought it was an interesting concept. And I generally think that somebody, regardless of man or a woman, would struggle with this if he got superpowers, right? You don't know how to control your superpowers because you think so high of yourself. So what? You just have it, right? And you just use it all the time, but you lose battles without your superpowers because you're not actually good without them. And if Captain Marvelita would just say like, alright, let's fight, and she would beat him, that would show me that Captain Marvel can control her emotions, and she doesn't have to be a sassy woman all the time that just does what she wants, and just by she sort of blasting him off, she proved me wrong. I was like, well, the character did not move anywhere, right? She began as an annoying woman with bad temper, and she ended with even more annoying woman with even a worse temper. And this was really a moment to show that Captain Marvel moved somewhere. This was really a moment to show her in a positive light. But, you know, the creators missed this, and you might ask why. Because this is one of the basic things that you do, that the character evolves during the movie. This is not some high-tier godlike knowledge. This is what every amateur movie maker knows, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because it was a white man telling her to do that, right? Because she wanted to prove that she is like, she has no shackles on her anymore, and she can just do whatever she wants. She can walk the earth and be without men, and I don't fucking know what. She can just be her own very strong, we can do it independent woman. And that's a good message to carry away from a movie, but not from a movie that has built the message to be different. I expected the message from Captain Marvel to be like, as she knew of her past, she would lose all that bad temper, and she would start to realize more that there are more planets and people to be saved, and that she can feel empathy for people, because she really began the movie as like this cold-hearted killer that only viewed the mission as the only objective. Now, why did I say Captain Marvel was a shitfest? I'll tell you why. Because the entire marketing around it. If you see how Brie Larson acts in real life, how she is so proud to be a woman and how she is so proud to be a role model, I don't think it sets a good example to anybody. I vividly remember many interviews with her, and she's like calling herself the new role model, and I vividly also remember the marketing team constantly reminding us that this is the first superhero movie where there is a female lead. I have 2 points to this. Captain Marvel is not the first superhero movie where the female character is a lead character. We are all forgetting that DC was ahead of its game a long time ago when they made Wonder Woman. And if you have seen Wonder Woman, that was a pretty good movie too. Wonder Woman doesn't go constantly reminding you that she's a woman. Gal Gadot accepts that she's Wonder Woman, but she doesn't go screaming around that, oh, look at me, I'm such a proud feminist. Yay, go feminism. She doesn't do that because she understands that extreme feminism is bullshit and that women over-empowerment is in the long run very counterproductive. She's a normal female that handles her female role, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I have no problem with Wonder Woman at all at being a movie of what it was. And I'll get back to Wonder Woman in a second, but my second point is just to sort of compare how feminism or how role models of females have improved in big quotation marks throughout the years. Meredith Brooks released her album Blurring the Edges, and one of the songs became very popular, the song namely being Bitch. Yeah, that's the name of the song, right? I like the song. I personally enjoy it, and I like to go on Genius and search what the lyrics actually mean. And when I saw the backstory, the song itself became even much more interesting for me. Basically, what Meredith Brooks said, that she was always inspired to be a musician because she saw there were no female musicians at that time, and so she decided to be a musician to show other girls not to be afraid to be a musician. And when I initially read that, I was like, that's fucking dope. That really is dope that somebody is trying to empower everybody to be a musician, right? But now you look at modern, and that was the old feminism, that was the good feminism, that was the feminism that actually empowered somebody. Now you look at feminism and it's all about diminishing somebody. It's all about pointing fingers at somebody that this is the problem, while the women themselves are the problem. Because everybody's very quick to point fingers that the society is the problem, or that man over there is the problem, or Donald Trump is the problem. I'm not saying these people are not responsible for anything. I'm just saying that sometimes looking in the mirror can be just as productive as pointing at people constantly. We've got one more movie to discuss, and I think everybody has been sort of expecting me to talk about this, and we just have to address the elephant in the room, basically. We are going to be talking about the new James Bond movie quickly. Because if you haven't heard, James Bond is supposed to be, and well, it's a known fact now, is going to be played by a black woman. You heard that right, a black woman. If you look at how James Bonds were represented in the past, you will see white, handsome men that sort of like were sex symbols and did not regard for anybody but the mission. And James Bond has not changed since then. Even when people protested with Daniel Craig was a good Bond, and I think he represented very well the late Bond, the Bond which wanted to settle down, right? In Casino Royale, he even found a girlfriend. She betrayed him, but that's not the point. Daniel Craig did a very good job at portraying the Bond which sort of didn't want to accept new missions, but the past was hunting down with him. Daniel Craig was an equivalent to Logan. In the last movie, Logan was also a ruggish guy who just wanted to remain living a quiet life on a ship somewhere, but everybody just kept going into his way because there was some past to catch up with him. But now you've got a black woman playing James Bond, and even though Hollywood dodged the entire question of why are we doing this by saying she's not going to be the James Bond, she's just going to be 007, right? But you can already see how stupid of an argument that is, because 007 and James Bond are synonyms. You cannot have the one without the another. So that's the state of Hollywood. They're replacing all the reboots, or they're doing new reboots, and replacing the actors with actors that are socially acceptable for the modern era, which is just a giant spit into the face of the original fan base and to any cinema lover. And the worst thing is, people are still gonna see it. It's not like Hollywood starts doing this shit, starts accepting the leftist propaganda, and people are just gonna boycott cinemas. It's not about that. People are still gonna see movies, and there are still going to be tickets sold. I don't think people are going to see movies like the new James Bond. I think Hollywood crossed the line over there, but I might be wrong, you know? And when I said I'll get to Captain Marvelita, this is the biggest problem I see on screens. Think about how women are represented in these movies, in these new reboots, right? Think about how women are represented on the TV screens. Are they represented how women are in the real world? Are women represented to be the sympathetic, the very gentle gender? Are females represented to be feminine on TV screens? No, they're not. Females on TV screens aren't feminine at all. They're trying to actively go against the prototype of females being emotional and females being more empathetic than their male counterparts, and they're making females these ruthless, emotionless robots. These blood-hearted killers. Because if you would want to make a movie where a female would play her role, it would be a movie about, I don't know, maybe a charity worker or something. I'm not saying there are no female secret agents, but that is not the role a female has. That is not the majority of females are not ruthless, emotionless robots, just killing everything. And I know movies are not always based on reality, but I mean, you have to have some reality check at some point. You cannot just make a movie and just be like, oh, this is how it is. Why am I saying this? Why is this a problem? Well, because imagine this. When you grew up in the 90s or something, you had lots of role models that, generally speaking, were not fucked in the head. Yeah, I'll say it like that. But you grow up in 2018. You're a 10-year-old girl in 2018. And now you want to find a role model. Because I also had my role models, I'm not gonna lie. And I still have. But, you know, so what the girl does is say, oh, you know, Captain Marvelita, she's my new role model because, well, that's presented to her by the media that this is supposed to be your next role model, a female superhero. And it sounds cool. And then she goes into the cinema and sees Captain Marvelita just killing everybody. Then she goes to the cinema and sees females playing like these ruthless, emotionless roles. And she starts to think that that's the norm. That she, in order to equal or to be somehow her role model, she also has to lose emotions. She has to lose femininity. And is that what we want? Do we want to diminish men to be cucks and to not be able to take care of themselves individually? And females to just be very career-oriented and just hate men in general? If that's the case, how do we want to reproduce as a species? How do we want to produce new offsprings? And even if we do, how are they going to be raised? Many people might be shaking their heads and saying, why am I so focusing on the kids? But as much as it's a cliche, children in general are our future. If we don't take care of our children properly, we're gonna have a fucked up future. Because a 10-year-old girl today in 15 years is going to be a fully functional adult that's going to have to make decisions. And if we take role models away from young boys, and if we provide young girls with these ruthless, emotionless women, I don't see the future being very bright. And I'm sorry if I'm pessimistic, that's just me. You may disagree with me. Sure, but I honestly think that what feminism is actively trying to do is counterproductive in their own essence. Because they have stopped doing the thing that says we empower women. They have started doing the thing that says we diminish everybody but women. And Hollywood is very happy to play their little game because the political climate in California is just asking for it. And that's a fact. With Silicon Valley right behind your door, Hollywood does not have much choice in doing what it does. So what can we do as a normal citizen? Well, not much really. You can not go and see the movie, but that's not gonna make a difference. But if you have children, or if you're alone, educate yourself. And don't fucking believe everything that's on the TV screen. And if you don't have a role model, well, I'm very sorry you don't, but you just have to survive on your own. Educate yourself. Because nobody's gonna do that one for you. And with that, I end my episode. Thank you so much for listening.